Eddie O'Sullivan, you're asking people to get behind Amnesty Ireland for the mini-marathon on Sunday week?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've been involved in helping Amnesty International on a number of occasions. And I suppose this is as good a one as any again. And mini-marathon is, I suppose, a great event and a very good cause to support.
Now, Eddie, your book, Never Die Wondering, is in shops now. How did you find writing the book?
It was quite interesting, really. It was an interesting experience, a bit daunting at the start, but I had a very good ghostwriter in Vincent Hogan, and I actually enjoyed the whole experience. And now that it's done, I'm kind of glad to be at the far side of it, but I haven't looked back on it. It was very enjoyable.
Are you bitten by the bug? Will you write another one?
I don't think so. I think one book about me is enough.
Why the title, Eddie? Why Never Die Wondering?
Well, it's something my mother used to say when I was a kid growing up. If you couldn't make your mind up about something, whether you do something like you say, never die wondering. I suppose it kind of my own way. I was a school teacher in a pretty kind of secure place, a pensionable job, and but I was bitten by the bug of coaching, and then I was for a while thinking about would I become a coach or not, and eventually I took the leap of faith, and I suppose there's a bit about that as well. I didn't want to wake up someday as a teacher and say, well, I had an opportunity there, to become a rugby coach, and I turned it down, so never die wondering.
Mm-hmm. And I've been reading some interviews with you over the past couple of weeks. You said you wrote the book to kind of dispel the myths about you, that you're not the character, the public persona that's perceived out there.
Yeah, I think that was a bit of a motivation as well. When Random House asked me to write it, I hadn't thought about writing a book, just Random House approached me, and I suppose there was kind of a caricature of me out there in the media. I suppose people only saw me working with the Irish team in rugby when you're under a lot of pressure and stuff, and that image of me being a fairly dour character, one-dimensional person, did get pushed out there, and I suppose it did gather traction to the point where I think people just saw me in one way alone, and the chance of the book was to give me to write about myself a bit and let people see there was another side to me, and maybe not everything was written about me was accurate or even true.
Mm-hmm. Now, Eddie, your Ireland team was phenomenally successful. I mean, you were third in the world rankings at one point. You won 3 Triple Crowns, and do you ever feel you got the credit that deserved?
I did at the time, I did at the time for sure, and it created a huge expectation on the team. But then when things went wrong, as they did in the World Cup, I think, the expectation was so high and the disappointment was so huge, and even there was an element of anger there that I think, in some ways, that's probably what I was remembered for. And it's funny talking about the book. I've done a number of interviews, obviously, and it always comes back to the World Cup and what happened in the World Cup. So I suppose that's something that will always be associated with me. But there were times when things went very well, and we had a great time, and I enjoyed that. But I suppose, like anything, sport has its ups and downs, and certainly I had the good days and the bad days in the Irish job, and I suppose at the end of the day you have to weigh one against the other, and I think at the end of it, I suppose I'd have to say I had more good days than bad days, and no regrets at the end of it. I enjoyed it all. Some disappointments though, I must say, but things you can't control. The days just happen, like losing a Grand Slam on a bounce for ball. So all those things are part of sport, but I'm glad I've written about them now, because I think you can park to move on, and I have moved on.
Mm-hmm. And you have indeed. You're coaching US Rugby now. Are you enjoying the challenge of coaching the Eagles?
I am indeed, yeah. It's a very different job. I mean, it's coaching an international rugby team, but it's miles away from coaching Ireland. You're dealing with amateur players and very limited budgets, and I suppose in a country the size of Europe, so it has its challenges. But I've been there before. I was there 10 years ago. I know the run of it, and for that reason, it's given me a huge advantage in dealing with this year. So I'm enjoying the job immensely. The tough part has been away from the family, but I'm getting on with it anyway, and I'm heading off in about 10 days' time for another few months.
What's the talent like there, Eddie?
There's some very good players out there. I'd say in the current squad there must be, 7 or 8 players that have no problem finding their way into professional rugby, but because they're Americans, they have issues with work visas here in Europe, and they also have difficulties where there's limitations on the number of foreign players. And most clubs, they say in England or stuff, or even in Ireland here, the problem is they're signing an overseas player. They tend to look to the Southern Hemisphere, so it's very difficult to get American lads over. But there's certainly plenty of them are well capable if they got an opportunity.
How popular is rugby in America, because it has to compete with like hockey, American football, basketball and all that?
It's very, very small minority sport. I mean, it's like barely raises. It gets no media coverage whatsoever, and most people wouldn't really know much about rugby. You're talking about a country of, I suppose, almost 300 million people, and rugby is just a tiny sport there. And of course, the sports market in America, the stranglehold in the sports market is held by football, basketball, baseball, ice hockey, and NASCAR, which I believe is huge.
After all that, Eddie, you must be glad to be back in Cork and just recharging the batteries a bit, are you?
I am. I'm back home, recharged the batteries. I've been home for almost 2 months now, so things are getting busy again on stateside, so it's time for me to up stumps and head off. So I'm looking forward to getting back, but I've enjoyed my break here and enjoyed promoting the book, and it was great fun doing it. And so I said back into the trenches again now in a couple of weeks.
And who knows, Eddie, in 10 years' time you might write another book about your experiences with US Rugby.
You never know.
Eddie, thanks very much. Pleasure talking to you.
Cheers. Bye-bye.